Hey, in an effort to try to bring up quiz grades, I'm going to be doing quick quiz reviews that you can watch to help you take your quizzes. So we're going to start with quiz 11 review. And there's a couple things that you want to know. The first thing is about changes that were going on in society. One of the biggest things was we had these transcontinental railroads, which was making it easier to move out west. And we really focus a lot on the first transcontinental railroad, which was completed in 1869. But if you look at this, by 1890, it had rapidly expanded to where we had four railroads that ran all the way across to the West Coast. And especially if you look at this Midwest area, and then coming on out here, it's going to make it much easier to move out west, making more population go out west. Work is also primarily going to move into factories. This means that the work is not going to be individualized anymore. People were trying to get the factory workers to work as efficiently as possible, meaning that a lot of your identity that you might have used to have had in your job is gone. You are basically doing a very simple task repetitively, and your boss doesn't necessarily care about your feelings or anything like that. It's all about just trying to make sure that you are working as efficiently as possible. And if you look at this political cartoon right here, you can kind of see an example of this worker who's being squeezed to death with low wages and high rent. This was a bad time to be a factory worker during the Gilded Age. All right, so the responsibility of the wealth is going to be a really, really big question. One is because there's going to be more wealth during this time than any previous time, and that's because monopolies had started to form. Monopolies were forming because of this consolidation of small businesses. So basically, small businesses are getting eaten by big businesses. And the biggest monopoly during this time period was John Rockefeller's Standard Oil. And Rockefeller Standard Oil was so powerful because he didn't just own oil companies. He owned the refineries to make that oil into a usable product. He controlled railroads, all of these different businesses. He's getting more and more powerful and more wealthy. So the question becomes, how should the wealthy respond to this? The first idea is social Darwinism, which is basically that poor people cannot be helped, so why should we try? This came from Darwin's theory of evolution, and the idea was that poor people were poor for a reason. So if you give them money, nothing's going to really help them anyway. And so because of that, the wealthy should be able to keep their money and the poor should not get anything. The other idea, though, came from this guy, Andrew Carnegie. And Carnegie believed that the wealthy should help the poor. This is called his gospel of wealth. And he was a very charitable man, gave away millions and millions of dollars. It should be noted that both Carnegie and the social Darwinism idea are favoring laissez-faire economics, which is this idea that the government does not get involved with people's finances, that they don't stop the control of these massive companies. It is not the government's job to help the poor out. And this sets up this very, very famous picture called the bosses of the Senate, which is showing that the monopolies are basically trying to control the government, not the other way around. The government's not trying to control the monopolies are trying to control the government. All right. And our last thing is immigration. So immigration really increased during this time period because of a need for factory work and railroads. And the big thing that it's highly stressed is that where immigrants came from changed after the Civil War. So before the Civil War, we're going to have our immigrants primarily be British, and then there was a big spike of Irish people. And then after the Civil War, you're going to have Central Europeans, that's Germans mainly. The Chinese are going to be coming over, Italians and Polish Jews arrive. And you can kind of see this in this picture right here. In this picture right here, and when you are looking at this, what you really want to look at is from like this time period to about right here. And what you can kind of see in this time period is we still have Germans coming, but the British are basically all gone. The Chinese are coming right in here. They're banned in 1882. And so because of, you have a lot of Russians, Italians, Hungarians. And the reason why this is so significant is because these people have very, very different cultures than the British did. The British and American cultures really were pretty seamless with one another. Now, all of a sudden, you have these other people who are coming over. They don't speak English. They don't eat the British and American food. They have their own food customs. And that is going to result in a lot of nativism. Nativism is this idea that we should ban or limit immigration. And the people who are going to be banned the quickest are going to be the Chinese, 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act. You're also going to have these things that are going to come up called political machines. And political machines were established mainly in northeastern cities. This is where a lot of the immigrants lived. And there would be these political figures that would be giving services to immigrants in exchange to make sure that the immigrants voted for these people. Now, this actually isn't that bad of an idea, except for the fact that these political machines were incredibly corrupt. And they couldn't get voted out of office because, again, they are going to have the immigrants back them no matter what, because they are giving out all this stuff to the immigrants. So the immigrants were dependent upon them. And because of that, these political machines could basically do whatever they wanted because they knew they had their votes. Right? And that is what you need to know for quiz 11. Good luck.